If you'd like to talk about your own Bigfoot encounter, or if you're looking for help from a Bigfoot investigator in your area, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Cat not behaving.
Oh, it's the dog now.
Oh, see?
The Bigfoot curse.
It's the Bigfoot curse, man.
Yeah, that's true. Jesus.
Have you guys ever encountered anything like the Bigfoot curse? Have you noticed bad things started happening after you encountered a Bigfoot?
I can't say that I've had. Of course, I only saw the one, and it was real quick, but I don't remember anything bad actually happening.
No, I can't say as I have. The one, and I'm pretty sure all my sightings were of the same one. But as far as bad luck afterwards or anything like that, no, I can't recall.
It became kind of a running joke for a lot of us because we found every time we'd try to get together and go out on an expedition or whatever, things would just happen randomly that seemed like something was trying to keep us from getting out there. Cars would break down, people would get flat tires, they wouldn't be able to get days off work that they already had scheduled off, getting sick for no reason. But I always thought it just sounded kind of like just how my life goes in general.
Right.
I heard that one.
I mean, unless I saw a Bigfoot a long time ago and didn't know it. You guys are nephew and uncle and nephew.
Yep.
Right.
Richard is the nephew and Craig is the uncle. And Are you both from the same area?
Yeah, but we don't live in the same area now. Like, he lives outside of Dardanelle, Arkansas, and I live up here in Poto now. I
pretty much helped raise Richard a little bit.
Yeah. Now, Craig, did you have your Bigfoot experience before him?
Richard, mine was back in 1986.
It was before I was born, the first one.
Yeah, it was before he was born.
86. And
yes,
was that in Arkansas?
Yes, sir. It was it was in Logan County on the backside of Blue Mountain Lake. At the bottom of our farm was on the backside of Blue Mountain Lake, and at the bottom of Dry Creek Mountain.
If you don't mind, why don't you just kind of walk us through what happened that day?
Well, it was actually at night, and we had some hogs that was going in labor that night, and to have baby pigs, and it was real cold, so we had to kind of keep a check on them, to make sure the babies got underneath a heat lamp and stuff once they're born, and I don't know, it was probably 11 o'clock at night, and I always had my dogs with me, and I tended to always carry a shotgun with me, and we had a lot of coyotes, wild dogs, and all that around. We live pretty far back there, and I was the hog barn itself where the sows had their babies. That was about 100 yards from our house, on down the road just a little bit. And I'd normally just walk down there. So I'm walking down, had my dogs with me, and I was carrying a little 410 shotgun, and I had a little D-cell flashlight, and I'm just shining it out there. Look, I'm looking for eyes is what I'm looking for, and seeing if I could see any wild dogs or what have you. And I get down about halfway between the hog barn and the house, and I shine a light on down the road way past our little drive in there, and I see some eyes way down there. And I didn't really think much of it at the time, guessing this, I'm guessing it was squatted because it looked smaller. And, I turn to my dogs and I point down the road and I tell them to get it, sick it. And they ran down there, and of course I'm running right after them. And they stopped. And when they stopped, I didn't really pay much of mind was, what was in the road or whatever. I was kind of mad at my dogs because they've never stopped before. So I'm sitting there kind of cussing them out. And I finally get back on my level head, I guess, and I look up with a flashlight, and, well, heck, all I see is feet. I mean, this thing it's standing there looking at me. It's probably, I don't know, we was probably, give or take, 12 feet maybe apart. And
wow.
it's standing there. And, even though I had this little D-cell flashlight, I could see it, and, when I shined on the feet and then with my light, and I realized how big this thing was, golly. I mean, it had to have been every bit of 8 feet tall at the least. And it was standing there. It had, long arms that, come down about its knees, I guess, the thing I remember the most is the face. The face, it had were glowing red off my flashlight. But the face, it kind of reminded me of a cross between a human and a gorilla. This one that I've seen, it didn't have, like the nose like a gorilla, flat and all that.
Yeah.
This one had more of a pronounced nose and lips. But anyway, we're standing there looking at one another, and it seemed like an eternity, but I know it was only seconds. And we stood there looking at each other, and it didn't act like it wanted to hurt me or anything. So I kind of looked down at my shotgun. I thought, man, this is too little of a gun to be shooting at this thing. So I just kind of backed up about 3 steps, and this thing was standing over in the left-hand side of the ditch. Anyway, it turned, and it took 2 steps and crossed the road and went out into this, it was real bad thicket, brush and briars and honeysuckle. And it was at that time my dogs decided that they wanted to go after it then. So they took off after it, and one of my dogs, I heard her yelp to come back, and she literally had the skin on one of her legs ripped down her leg a little bit. I guess she got too close to that thing. Anyway, it was ripped down, and of course that's pretty much the size of that story.
I mean, that's a pretty amazing story.
Yes, I still have dreams about it, and I can still picture the face and everything, to this day. And, back then, of course, we didn't have cell phones or nothing like that. That was before cell phones even come out. And, I mean, it was just something, and for the longest, I didn't talk about it, because I was afraid people would think I was a loony, crazy out of my mind. But, I know what I seen. And then, as that year went on, I seen it, I probably seen it about another, I guess 3 times.
Always right there around your place?
Yes, sir. Of course, we moved out there when I was 12, and that was in '82. And of course, this thing shows up. It's 1986, and I think it was just traveling through. I don't think it was meaning to stay long at all. And it just hung around the house probably a good, give or take, 8 months to a year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just stopped seeing it.
And before that, you don't recall anything standing out that in hindsight might have been related to it?
Well, the only thing I can think of is I think that year, and I mean, as far as food wise, I think it was, I'm pretty sure that year that they drained Blue Mountain Lake, and I'm just betting that he was going down there getting some food.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when that lake got drained, it was easy to go down. You catch fish with your bare hands,
Yeah. And I know, growing up kind of at the lake, whenever the water gets low like that, whenever they drain a lake, I mean, you can smell that for miles.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And of course, we live so remote, I mean, you go 2 miles and you was on the backside of the lake. And if you went 2 miles the other way, well, you was at the bottom of the mountain. So, in Dry Creek Mountain, it is a remote wilderness. There's been a lot of stories up that way too. And Tater Hill, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Tater Hill back, my uncle and my cousin actually found bare footprints in the snow on Tater Hill.
Wow.
Yeah, they followed them and they ended up losing them around some cliffs and caves and stuff.
I was just going to ask you, whenever you saw this thing, did you realize what it was?
Not at first, and of course I was kind of scared, I wouldn't say I was scared out of my mind, but I mean, I was shaking and I was scared, and I guess it was later that I realized, there could only be one thing like that,
mm-hmm.
Which is Bigfoot,
Did you hear stories about them in the area growing up?
Well, the only story I heard was that one about my uncle and my cousin finding the bare footprints in the snow in wintertime. And, they had followed them until they lost them in some cliffs and stuff. But that was the only time I'd really ever heard anything. Of course, a lot of people around them parts, they're kind of hush hush on things.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
they won't tell you a whole lot of things.
Now, when was it that Richard learned about your encounter?
Oh boy, well, I've been hearing the story since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much grew up, I wasn't one of the people that I believed in it when I had my encounter. I never suspected I'd ever hear or see anything. So, but I grew up with, him telling all the stories out there about, him seeing it multiple times and sounds and just, the overall feelings that you get. I know, like, my mom used to walk to the lake, since the lake was, what you said, 2 miles from the house. And she said that sometimes she would start walking and just get this feeling like you need to turn around. You do not need to walk down this road right now. And she would listen to her feelings and just walk back to the house. She said it creeped her out.
And you and your family are all outdoorsy people, right?
Yes, sir. We hunt, fish. We try to do it all.
Yeah.
So, people talk about that feeling that they get, kind of like hitting an invisible wall, or, something don't seem right. You just kind of get the chills or the heebie-jeebies or whatever.
Well, yeah, well, I'll tell you another experience that I had. Richard, he was just a baby. Anyway, him and his mom and dad, they had come out and they had spent the weekend with us. And anyway, it was Sunday, and they was loading up to go home, and it was like, right before dark, where you can still see, but it's just starting to turn. And anyway, they was loading up, and I walked out on the porch, and one of my dogs, it was whining and kept looking off across the road there. And I said, I kept trying to find out what was going on. Well, I got out, stepped off the porch, and walked out to the edge of the road, and there it is, standing right across the road from me. Again, it's kind of in the brush this time. That time, I really don't know what it was. I froze. Richard, him in the background, he come up behind me, and he kept asking me what was wrong, but I couldn't answer him. I just stood there looking at this thing. And finally, he looked up, and he seen it too, and that's when that thing it took off, and it made the god-awful crashing sound through the woods and all. But, I don't know why I was more scared that time than I was, the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't, I can't quite understand that, but, it was a feeling like, I don't know, you get knots in your stomach, and your hair standing on the back of your head, back of your neck, and it's just one of them feelings.
Have you ever encountered like a cougar or a bear or anything out in the woods?
Oh yeah, me and my dad, we used to bear hunt, and matter of fact, we even, I'm not scared of much. We found a bear in a snare trap, and we was actually poking it with a stick. If that tells you how I am.
Well, that's kind of what I was asking. Like, is there a feeling that you've experienced comparable to, that feeling you get around a Bigfoot?
That was just totally different. It was, poking a bear with a stick and stuff, yeah, I was excited. My heart was beating, but you had the fear factor facing the Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
There was more of a, I don't know, it's like a strong anxiety comes over you, and it's just kind of hard to explain.
Has that anxiety stuck with you over the years?
At times, I'll get into certain areas, like where I'm hunting or something like that, and, I feel like, I'm being watched or something is out there, and I just can't see it, Like, while, I hunted for a little while on Pettigene Management area, and that area it's one of the creepiest areas I've ever hunted. And it just, I don't know, just walking out to a deer stand 100 yards, you feel like something's out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, Richard, what was your experience like?
Let's see. It was in 2007. I was living in a little town called Belleville, Arkansas. And me and a buddy of mine, we'd go down to the Pettigene River bottoms, which is literally a mile from the house. It was a mile from town, if that. Cross country, it wouldn't take long at all to get there. And there was these two sloughs back there called Mason and Horseshoe. Well, we started fishing in these little sloughs. We had to cut out a little campsite and everything else in there. And I remember it was December, I'm pretty sure. warm for that, that day. And we just decided, hey, let's go do some night fishing. So I'm sitting in my chair. I got my fishing pole out in the water, and my buddy, he's sitting there chopping up some firewood. It's already after dark. We do have a small fire going. You could see, but he wanted to make a bigger fire for whatever reason. I can't remember. And probably about 12 o'clock, we hear you've heard the recording of the whoop, the whoop sound they do.
Yeah.
Heard that. I would wager 60, 70 yards. It came from the far end of Mason Lake. And, of course, me and him never heard that before. And, I'm not as outdoorsy as Craig, but I've been hunting a lot. I've been fishing a heck of a lot more. And I ain't ever heard anything like that. So me and my buddy we retreat to the other side of the fire because I don't know, it just unnerved us, I guess you could say, because we're just both just standing there talking like, do you know what that was? Hell no, what was it? We're just trying to figure out what the sound was. And then we heard it again, except it started with the whoop and then it ended with like an ah or something. It was weird. One of the weirdest sounds I have ever heard. But it was a lot louder, it was a lot closer. And I don't know, the hair on the back of my neck went up. I got real nervous. I had a little dog with us at the time, a little Cocker Spaniel. He went pretty much everywhere with me. And he's just sitting there right next to me, and he's just shaking. I don't know why, I'm like, it wasn't like a roar or something, but he was nervous, which made me even more nervous. So I picked him up under my arm. I looked at my buddy. I was like, we're getting the hell out of here. Like, okay. So we left the fire going. We left our tent. We left our equipment. We left everything. I bailed in through the passenger side because I'd heard it on the other side of the Jeep from the driver's side.
Yeah.
It sounds like a horror movie in a way.
Right, been there.
And I was like, I'm like, I've seen this horror movie too many times. So go into the pasture side, crawl over, dogs in the back. My buddy bailed in right after me, nearly on top of me. And I backed straight out. I didn't try to shine lights, nothing. I just like, all right, we're getting out of here. So we left. I came back the next day, and I can't recall. I'm pretty sure I zipped the tent up, but I can't recall. But I know we had food in the tent, hamburger patties and vegetables. We were going to grill late that night, and, of course, grill any fish we caught. And that was all gone. All the food was gone. I couldn't find no sign of it. And I backtracked to where I'd heard the sound, and I found about a 16-inch print in the mud. And, of course, this was in December. Granted, it was warmer that day, but this is still December.
Yeah.
And this is a barefoot track. And, God, I wish I still had this old phone. I had an old flip phone at the time, kind of crappy looking. And I did take a picture of it at the time with my foot as a comparison. And I ended up breaking that phone and losing all of it. And it was about 30 yards from camp where I found it.
Bigfoot curse.
That was that was the first one.
30 yards from camp. I mean, that's pretty close. You kind of hope that track got left after you guys hauled out of there.
I would hope so, because the position that I found the track was going away from camp. So I'm assuming it had come in, and most of this is hard packed soil. You wouldn't have been able to leave any prints, nothing that I could see anyway. And but it just happened to step where this mud was, I guess. I don't know why in that particular spot, but it was there, and it was heading away from camp. So that was even more unnerving. And like my mom, she is a believer in Bigfoot. She's heard all of Craig's stories, and but at the time she didn't really believe me. She kind of just played it off. And then one night, this is a week later, I think, we hadn't gone back after we recovered all of our stuff. We had just decided we're just going to leave that area alone after that. But she and her friend had a little too much fun that night. They decided, hey, let's go look for Bigfoot down the bottom. So they roped me and my buddy into it. My buddy's mom was with my mom. Of course, me and him are pretty unpleased. We did not want to go.
Yeah.
But we went. We didn't have much of a choice in the matter. They convinced us. And we get down there. It's probably about 12 o'clock again. And, you're talking about the Bigfoot curse. I buried my Jeep up. Never had gotten stuck down there before, and I buried this thing up. And there's no way I'm getting out, not without being towed out. And I'm sitting there cussing. They think it's all funny, and they're laughing and everything else. So we decided we got to walk back to town, which that's only a mile, not that far. And where the road curves, there's this S-bend in the road, kind of, and it's heavily wooded on that side. It's about 300 or 400 yards from where our campsite had been. We get close to that bend, and we just hear a branch just snap. And instantly, we all froze. They had been talking. We hadn't have been quiet. And we all froze, and just this feeling of dread just washed over us, all of us. I know I was definitely feeling it. And it just like no fear that I've ever felt before. It was different, hair raising, just like I don't know if it's saying, hey, you guys are being too damn loud, or hey, you're in my territory and you need to get out. I'm not really sure. So we backed up in that road further away from the tree line, and we called my dad. Of course, my dad and mom are divorced, have been for years. He just happened to live in the area. And that was the longest 30 minutes of my life waiting on him to show up. We didn't hear anything else. I didn't hear anything run away. But we felt like we were being watched the entire time. And we just stood there almost back to back in the middle of this road and just listened the entire time till he showed up. And, of course, once he showed up, we got out of there.
How far away would you guess that the limb snap was?
30 yards, maybe 40.
You were talking about your reaction, and you said your mom wasn't really believing it. Well, how was she feeling after she heard that limb snap? Were the women freaked out like you were?
Oh yeah, they freaked out. Mom, she believed me after that one, because she just said she'd never felt anything quite like that. And after that, mom wants to see one. She really does. And I'm like, I don't know if you really want to see one, but we think we might have seen one down there. We're not sure. It was close to the time we were moving away. I think it was like one of the last times we really went through the bottom, because we'd take a drive through there, and I guess mom was just hoping to see something. And they had corn on either side of the road, in this same spot. It's heavily farmed. It's agriculture beside those two lakes. And for whatever reason, they planted corn that year. And we rounded that S-bend going towards the bridge and the river, and we seen something kneeling in the ditch, it looked like. It was not like overwhelmingly huge. It just looked weird. To me, it looked grayish, like grayish fur. And whatever it was, once it seen our headlights, on all fours, it hit the middle of the road. You ever seen a gorilla run?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it reminded me of. And once it hit the middle of the road, it dove into the other side of the cornfield. And I pulled up there beside it, and I couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything. Whatever it was either hiding really well or was just gone. It was just, this whole thing took a second or two before, we couldn't see or hear it anymore. It's crazy.
Do you recall how many steps or whatever you want to call it took to get across the road?
I would say from the ditch to the middle, and then it dove into the cornfield, so 2.
Just hit the middle of the road and That was it.
Yeah, it was like a kind of a leap and then leap again, and it was gone. But it's on all fours doing it, and it just, the overall shape of it, let's just put it like this. I've never seen a deer out there. Mm-hmm. I don't recall ever seeing one, and we went through there all the time. Had never seen a bear out there, though they probably do come through, but I've seen a bear run. I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
It didn't look right. I'll just say that. It just looked very weird. But it just happened so quick and then it was gone, and we couldn't figure it out. And, of course, the soil at that time was really dry and hard packed around the edges of the road, and you couldn't see no tracks.
Right. Now that area where you and your buddy had the encounter fishing, was that like a spot that you guys frequented and had gone to before then?
Oh, yeah. We've been there. We've been fishing there for months. We never had any problems, though this is the first time I believe we had not fished there. It might have been one other time, but this is the first time we actually intended to stay the night and the entire night and just fish,
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I don't know what could have brought that on, other than I remember it was unseasonably warm during December that year. Of course, Arkansas gets that way.
Yeah.
Like Oklahoma does. It'll be warm all the way up until February sometimes, and then it gets cold.
Yeah. Now, did either one of you guys experience, like any smells or anything like that associated with it?
Yes. Yeah, all my sightings. Well, the first one that was probably the worst smell, the first sighting. But there was always like at least a wet dog smell. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And me, I didn't ever smell anything.
And I heard it. The one I seen. I heard it. It never really growled or anything like that, but I heard it grunt and make weird noises like that. But it wasn't never just a growl.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you guys kept up with Bigfoot since your encounters? Like once you got on the internet and everything, do you?
Oh yeah, we're actually wanting to start on a little group where we're trying to get that going now. I mean, we've been wanting to do this for years, and I think we're going to try to do expedition next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got some pretty good, places that we know about that we can go. We're going to investigate them a little further, but we got several places I think we can go and possibly experience something anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys familiar with the theory that these things might use infrasound?
I have heard of that, and I've watched a lot of documentaries and stuff, about it.
I was just curious, Craig, if you thought that time that you saw one in the road and you froze, do you think that was something it did to you, or just a reaction you had for some reason?
Boy, that's hard to say. I'm not sure. I mean, I think, seeing him, I really can't answer that. It could have possibly been him, doing something to me. I do not know.
Was it the same color as the first one you saw?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I pretty much think it was the same one. It always looked the same,
Mm-hmm.
about the same height. Now, however, I did and Richard seems to think it was an alpha that we seen.
Mm-hmm.
I did see one bigger later on in that year. Me and my friend Jimmy Scott, we was coming back from town. We had been to the theater to see a movie, and it was late. It was I don't know, it was 10 something at night, and of course we had to drive about 12 miles just dirt road, and we're going down through there, and all of a sudden, of course, I have a flat. I guess you might say that's a Bigfoot curse.
See, there
you go. We had a flat, and oh gosh, I looked in the back, couldn't find the deadgum jack or nothing. So I thought, well, we was probably then about 4 miles from home. And I told him, I said, let's just walk it. We'll get to the house and we'll bring a truck back and a jack, and we'll change it then. And we're walking down through there, and of course we have to walk by a graveyard. And before you get to this graveyard, there's this field, and the moon was shining full bright. And we're walking along there, and we're just talking. And all of a sudden, I mean, this thing, it steps out, and I can see the silhouette of it, I mean, it's just off of it, and it's just huge. I'd have to say that one, the shoulder width was ungodly. It had to have been 5 feet.
Wow.
At least. And it stood there at the fence line, and of course there was little saplings there and stuff. I mean, it couldn't hide behind no trees, that's for sure, because the trees wasn't big enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it stood there, and I seen it first, and of course, my initial reaction was run, and I thought I'd told my buddy to run, but I guess he didn't get the memo in time. But anyway, I took off running. I thought I'd told him to run, but anyway, he was lagging behind there, and he finally looked to see what I was running from, and he seen it too. And of course, we ran 2 miles down the road nonstop in a dead run.
Jeez.
But yeah, that thing was.
I mean, 5 foot shoulders. That got to be a big boy.
It was huge. It was. I couldn't. If I'd known what I know now, and to go back and compare, something to the height of it and stuff, I would have done all that. But I was just a stupid teenager back then.
Yeah.
But now I know, I've read enough. I've seen enough stuff. If I see something again, there will be a comparison and, hopefully photos and all that jazz.
I wanted to talk about the dogs a little bit more and how they reacted. Had either one of you ever seen your dogs react like that before?
No.
No, my dogs that I had out on the farm, they was real good. I mean, any other dogs come up, and if I didn't want them in the yard, and I told them, sick it, get it, they would. They'd even go after a bear. I had one dog, he was part sheepdog and something else, and the rest of mine were hunting dogs, a couple of beagles, and I had a squirrel dog. And, there were times there was times that they would chase after it, and there was times that they wouldn't even mess with it.
Huh.
And I really can't understand that part. I don't know if, maybe the Bigfoot was sending out a signal saying, hey, don't bother me, or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That kind of stuff really interests me whenever it comes to this subject, the feelings that humans get and the feeling, the reaction that dogs have to these things, I just can't help but wonder where that comes from. Was there a time whenever these things were commonly known to men and we knew that they were something to be afraid of, and it's just kind of instinctually stuck with us, or what?
Well, there's theories that go way back into the Bible days,
Mm-hmm.
They think they're leftover creatures from back then, I don't know. I couldn't answer that. I think until we actually catch one or whatever, nobody will ever know.
Do you think it's going to take a body to prove these things?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Unfortunately, I think so. And I don't know if you'll ever catch a live one, but I mean, someone may have to shoot it.
It ain't gonna be me. That's a daggum truth.
Now, I'll tell you a story, and I ain't going to give my uncle's name or nothing like that. This is another story. And my uncle, he used to be a game and fish biologist on the Mount Magazine Wilderness area.
Mm-hmm.
And he had gotten a call that a farmer on the other side of the mountain, we all lived on the Havana side. I don't know if you know anything about Mount Magazine or not.
I have been to Mount Magazine a couple times whenever I was probably 8 years old. So it's been a while, but
okay. Between Cove Lake and the bottom of the mountain,
mm-hmm.
there's some cattle farms.
Okay.
Fields, a lot of people got cattle out there. But my uncle was called to investigate something. And he went out there, and of course, he heard the story from the farmer. The farmer said something was disturbing his cattle that night, and he went out there, and he had a 12-gauge shotgun. He had 5 shells in it, buckshot. And he claims to have shot this thing at about 25 yards with buckshot with a 12-gauge. He said he shot it twice, and then it let out a scream. He shot it again. It went down to its knees, and then he shot it a couple more times, and he said the thing stood up and took off and took out about a 10-foot section of fence.
Wow.
Okay, my uncle, being the biologist, he went out there to investigate this, and he gathered up samples. There was blood, there was hair samples and everything. And anyway, they sent it off to some lab somewhere, and we actually got to, he wasn't supposed to show us, but we actually got to see the file on this, and everything come back unknown.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know if I've never, he's the only one I've ever heard that story from. I don't know if the farmer was told to be quiet. I don't know any more than that, but I do know we seen the hair samples and we seen the file on it. So I know it was real.
That's pretty creepy.
Well, I mean, Mount Magazine, there's a lot of stories about it. These people, it was how they got run off the mountain that I wonder, it was told that these two people had half of a map of when the Spanish Armada crossed Mount Magazine.
Huh.
That led to gold. And anyway, but me and my dad went up where one of these people went off, and the tracks of the car, the skid marks, it's going straight, and then it turns 90 degrees and goes off the cliff.
Wow. Explain
that one.
Yeah.
Just a quick 90-degree turn, and it's going off. And I've heard little stories about Mount Magazine, all my life, tidbits here and there, people having experiences. And then there's also one bluff up there that I used to go to and take people to. You could almost have an experience about every time you win. It's called, oh Lord, help me, Richard.
Oh, shoot. Is that at Blanchard Springs Overlook?
Not Blanchard. What was it called?
I know it's on the backside of Mount Magazine is what you're talking, the Paris side.
Yeah. Yes. And and you walk down on this overlook, go at night. A lot of times, I don't know how many stairs there are walking down to it, but there's a bunch. And a lot of times you can start walking down there and you'll start hearing noises and cracks and breaks. And then you start to feel like you're being watched. And it's just crazy.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. And where Mount Magazine sits, if you look across the valley on the Havana, Belleville, Danville side, you see Blue Mountain Lake and you see the mountains in the background where Craig used to live. This is all pretty much something can move across that entire valley and not be seen if it really wanted to. Real easy because there's only one main road that goes through that entire valley.
Yeah. I remember it being extremely remote wilderness out there.
Yes. Okay. And you get over there where my old hog farm was. It's bad out there. I mean, it was so bad. We first moved out there when I was 12. Me and my dad and his buddy Lindell, we decided to go up in the mountains, and we got lost. And it was just crazy. We even come up on some, I guess you might call them wrong-turn people.
Yeah.
We come up on an old shack, and this old man standing out there has a big old chaw of tobacco, in his mouth, and old blonde-headed woman. At least we think she was blonde. She was pretty dirty. But, they pretty much told us to get the hell out of there.
Well, it seems like, if I'm remembering right, my aunt and uncle were from Paris. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. So I know we came in on the Paris side. I remember there was a real popular catfish restaurant over there somewhere.
Yeah.
At the base of the mountain. And we did go to an overlook. And if I remember right, like I said, I was a real young kid, but were there people growing pot out there on the side of the mountain?
that could be possible. I mean,
I wouldn't put it past them.
It just seems like we were at one of these overlooks, and my uncle pointed over at this different shaded square area out in the wilderness, and he was talking to my grandpa about how it was remote enough that pot farmers would go out there and set up crop out in the woods, and you could go on this lookout and see them spotted around the side of the mountain and everything.
That would be Brown Springs. I remember it now. Brown Springs Overlook, I believe. And there's enough space and food for something out there to live pretty dang easy.
Oh yeah, I mean it's one of the areas that I would like to do an expedition. Honestly, Tater Hill.
That place is creepy.
Yeah, it's just you'd have to experience it to understand it. It's pretty tall, and you start getting closer to the top, and you don't see any life anymore. There ain't no birds chirping, nothing like that. I mean, it's just like it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the creepiest places I've ever been. And I just know that there's something there.
Now, are there any like urban legends or anything associated with any of these places?
I know that back then we seen a lot of UFOs.
Really?
Yeah, we had one sighting. One night, me and my whole family was woke up about 11 o'clock at night, and you looked out, and it was like it was daytime. And because we lived right beside the power lines run right over our property. And anyway, we all got up and looked outside. And by the time we got outside, we seen the edge of a big saucer shaped thing following the power lines and going over the hill.
Huh. Now, people have all kinds of theories, and none of us really know the truth for a fact one way or the other. But do you think there's any connection between Bigfoot and UFOs or orbs or anything?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, me and Richard and, what was it, your mom, Richard? Wasn't she with us?
You talking about the Dover Lights?
We went to see the Dover Lights, which I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
The Dover Lights, it's an overlook, and they say you can go out there and you can see these colorful orbs floating around down below. Well, that night we went, we seen some orbs. You could actually see something. Can't explain it, but then we got the bright idea of doing some Bigfoot calls. So I got up there and I did a whooping call, and we got an answer.
Yeah, from the other side of the valley, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
And then shortly thereafter, we really got creeped out. We felt like we was being watched, and every once in a while you could smell this bad smell coming at you.
Now, Richard, you said that during that encounter that you had out there fishing, your friend was cutting firewood at the time?
Yeah, he was using a hatchet, and he was just chopping away at a log.
That could sound like a wood knock right there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. After the fact, of course.
Yeah. Now, your sighting was back in 2007?
Mm-hmm.
And you actually reported it to the BFRO, didn't you say?
Yeah, it's on the BFRO under Yale County. There's two different sightings. One took place north of town around Spring Lake, and mine took place south of town around the Pedgine River.
And the BFRO is the research organization where the Finding Bigfoot crew came from, Matt Moneymaker's organization. Were you contacted by anybody?
Yeah, I was contacted, and we talked for a good hour and a half. And at the time, I guess there was so much activity going on around Yale County that he was going to come down and wanted me to help kind of show him some spots, but I never heard back from him after that. And I know in Havana, behind the high school, a teacher was working late one night and something screamed at her from the field, and that freaked her out. And of course, north of town in the Spring Lake area, there's been several sightings out there that I've heard about. And other than that, it was just a weird year. It's like we had all this activity going on at once. And of course, you remember I said from where my sighting and experience happened to my house is only about a mile across country, if that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after the limb break encounter, whatever you want to call it, this is probably in January now. We weren't going back down there, and I heard something walking around the pasture beside the house. And the pasture at the time, of course, had grown up, but I was thinking it was my neighbor's cattle. My neighbor, kept cattle in that pasture, and I kept hearing it, and then it dawned on me, it's like, my neighbor just sold his cattle. He don't have no cattle out there. So I walk outside, and just as soon as I'm outside, I don't smell anything, but the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I felt really nervous all of a sudden. Because it's January. It's going to be fairly dead quiet anyway, but I just felt like unnaturally still. So I backed my tail end up and went right back in the house after that, because I wasn't going to sit out there and just, mess around with whatever I felt. But I went out in that pasture the next day, and this pasture has a little bit of a slope before it goes into some lower ground by a creek. And I found a spot where something had been laying there it looked like where it has been laying has been picking over this little rise, and you could see my porch and the front door and all that perfectly right there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, it creeped me out. And that happened multiple times. And we believe at one point in time something actually came up in town. Of course, Belleville's only, 300 people? It's not a big town at all. I think my mom was home. She said she saw something streaking across like the backyard area. She said it was just a shadow just running as fast as it could. My neighbor up the street said he had seen it out in a little field between our houses.
Huh.
Don't know why it would come up in town other than maybe it was curious, but
maybe it was for looking for food.
Yeah, I guess, because this was wintertime, but I figured there'd be easier places to find food in the middle of town. But as I said, this town is 300 people, if that. That's on a good day.
And now you've relocated to Poto?
Yeah, I live in Poto.
Which is in southeastern Oklahoma, for those that don't know.
Yeah.
And
LaFleur County, which
hotbed of Bigfoot.
I know. That's kind of ironic, because I know on the BFRO there's a report of this is right here in town, something behind Carl Albert College, which is a mile from my house. Apparently it crossed the road right there. And I think that was in 2012, though. It's been a while ago.
Have you had any experiences since you moved there or gone out poking around or anything?
Not really, though. I was for a while, I was a pizza delivery driver when we first moved up here, and some of the places I'd have to go deliver kind of in the boonies a little bit. And there'd be some nights I'd just get out of the truck and I'd feel nervous. But then again, I don't know if it's because I'm more aware at night now and more cautious at night. But there have been sometimes I almost not want to step out of the truck. So other than that, no.
Would you say that things have definitely changed now that you know these things are out there?
Oh, yeah. I'm a lot more cautious and a lot more open-minded about it since then. I mean, you have, how you have some people saying, well, it's aliens or whatever, or it's from the biblical times. I don't know, but I'm a lot more open-minded till we have one. We're not going to know what this thing is. I believe it's flesh and blood. I don't know if it's early hominid species or an ape left over that survived the Ice Age or something like that. But, yeah, I'm a lot more open-minded and a lot more observant than I used to be.
Have you guys had any other family members that have had sightings?
Since we all moved from that area, I haven't had an experience since. I don't.
And other than my grandpa, y'all were bear hunting on Tater Hill when he seen something?
Oh yeah, I wasn't with him that time.
Okay.
Yeah, he seen something. He said all he could see was two legs walking, and they were covered in fur, so dark colors. So he's not sure. He said the trees were covering up the rest of its body, so he's not sure what he's seen.
Yeah, and I don't know of anyone else really. Not to my knowledge. Of course, people are tight-lipped about it. I mean, you bring this up in like a gas station or something, you're going to get laughed out of there.
Well, I've been, keeping up with this for 20 years now. And I had quite a bit of extended family in Arkansas, mostly in rural areas. And I have made comments several times on this show and other places that the entire state of Arkansas should be ate up with these things, but you never hear anything. You never hardly ever hear any reports coming out of Arkansas. And
that's true.
I'm so glad you reached out to me, because this is the most stories I've heard about Arkansas in this entire 20 years.
Well, he still has, didn't you see it 2 more times also?
Yeah, I did.
If you wanted to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you guys are willing to share.
You betcha. One other time I seen it, I was Well, it was late in the evening. I'd just gotten off the school bus, and of course, it's winter time and it gets dark quick. Well, I have to ride the bus. I was having to ride the bus 17 miles from school to home. It took an hour and a half on a bus just to get me home.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I decided, I'm going to go down and look for arrowheads, because Blue Mountain Lake is a prime place to find arrowheads. So I hop on I had a Tri-Moto 3-wheeler at that time, little old 125 full start. And I went down there and I parked my 3-wheeler on the, edge of the water. And I just started kind of combing the bank. Well, I don't know. Something told me to look around. I just got this weird feeling I was being watched. And I looked over there, and I don't know, probably about give or take 100, 150 yards, there was something that was staring over the trees down there. A lot of your trees were just little, like little mesquite trees and little saplings.
Yeah.
That didn't grow very tall. The average height, 7 or 8 foot. But this thing was looking at me. And I'd have to say, I'm not sure how tall it was. It might have been a different one there. I'm not sure. But I know that we was looking at one another, and then it just started, you could tell it was using its arms and pushing the trees out of the way, and it was walking toward me. Well, I did the only thing I knew to do. I got over there and hopped on my 3-wheeler. Well, here's another one of your Bigfoot curses. I forgot about this one. But anyway, my 3-wheeler wouldn't start.
Perfect timing.
This thing is heading toward me, and I'm sitting there and I'm cranking with all my might. Well, then I looked down and I realized I forgot to push the switch on. So anyway, I'm still watching this thing. He's probably, by then, when I got my 3-wheeler started, he's probably, 50 yards out, but still in heavy brush. And I took off, and I thought to myself, golly, where he's at, he could run, because the road curved back around, was going to run almost right beside him. So I thought, well, I'm not going that way. So I just started cutting across country, just going as fast as I could go.
Putting distance between you two.
Yeah, and I got to the house, and I ran inside, slammed the door, and of course my mom and them, they were asking me what was wrong. They said my face was white and everything else, and I told the stories. Of course, back then, my mom, she was pretty skeptical. I don't think she really believed me, but that one there, I don't know what his plans was or what, but when he started walking toward me, that really scared. That puts a scare. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think that the intentions would be too good to approach you like that.
Right. And I kind of think that one was that same one it was because of the height of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking it might have been the same one I'd seen down at the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to really see his shoulders or nothing, but just by the height alone, it's just unreal. Then, of course, we had it bang on our house. That was real creepy. we was all in bed one night, and all of a sudden, I mean, it shook the entire house. You know, we lived in an old farmhouse, and just hit us, bam, and it shook the entire house. So I got up, and of course I slipped on some britches, and I grabbed my 12 gauge this time. And anyway, by the time I got outside, though, I mean, I guess these things, you know, they're so quick. They're so fast, you know. By the time I got out there, you know, out on the road and looking, you know, the dogs was already chasing it. Had my dogs and my neighbor's dogs. They were all after it. And of course, you could hear it circle and coming back around. And down at our hog farm, which is like 100 yards away, we had a street light out there, and I just watched it right across the road. I mean, it was just lickety split. You know, this road, you know, it give or take, it was, you know, 12 feet across, but this thing could cross it, you know, just like that.
Wow. That first one that you saw, you mentioned your flashlight. Did you see eye shine?
Yes, red eye shine.
Like a dark red?
I mean, well, to tell you the truth, I mean, it wasn't a bright red. Mm-hmm. It was a darker red, kind of like maybe like a crimson red, maybe. I don't know, you know, and that aspect of it, you know, a little darker red.
Yeah.
And, you know, from his eyes, though, like, you know, I can remember he was not concerned about me one bit. You know, it was just like, oh, hi, just go on. You know, I mean, I really don't think he would have hurt me, you know, and I wish I'd known about like gifting and all that back then, because I would have tried it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if you'd want to use food doing that, because I've heard bad stuff about using food to gift them.
Well, you know, I mean, yeah, that might be a bad thing, but I don't know. I mean, as far as the sightings, that's all my sightings. Now, you know, weird things did happen that we couldn't explain also, living out there on the hog farm. We had, of course, all of our pigs, you know, we had them all separated out, you know, into sizes and all that. We had this shelter that we made. It was a metal shelter, you know, had metal walls and stuff. And we made it to where we could move it around. So we made it to where we could take the roof off of it, you know, to make it easier to move. And we'd move it to whatever pasture we needed it, and stuff like that. And this one pasture that we had it in, it was at the other side of the fence from our lagoon. We had a lagoon, you know, where all the manure and everything, you know, when we clean pens and stuff, that's where it all would run into. And anyway, I know that night there wasn't no wind, no nothing. And we went down there, and the roof of that shelter was laying in our lagoon. And, you know, we're talking about, you know, it was probably a good 10 by 12 structure,
mm-hmm.
you know, with a tin roof, heavy. You know, it took, when we put it on, you know, it usually took 4 to 5 of us to even put it on. And this thing, how it ended up in our lagoon, missed our fence. You know, it was like about 2 feet from our fence. It missed our fence. There was no marks in the ground, and it was in the lagoon.
And what kind of distance are we talking?
We're talking at least 12 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it didn't just slide off or anything like that.
No, I mean, it was made, it was literally made. We made it ourselves to, I told you it was made out of metal walls,
mm-hmm.
and it was made to fit over them walls.
So it kind of locks down on top of it.
Yeah, like a cap.
Yeah.
That's how we made it, so it would be, easier to deal with and all that when we had to move. But like I said, I mean, to go that far, and we came up with all kinds of theories. We thought, well, if the wind would have blown it, why didn't it hit the fence?
Yeah.
Or why ain't there, marks in the ground or something like that, But it was a silent night that night. And like I said, and next morning we go out there and this thing, our roof to it in the lagoon, and we don't know how I got there.
Huh.
And it would have took something extraordinarily strong to move it.
Yeah. And with it being in the lagoon, it sounds kind of very intentional.
Exactly. That's kind of what we thought. And the only thing we could come up with was that thing that was around there, that Bigfoot. We think he did it.
Any idea why? Just to get your attention, or he didn't like you moving it, or what?
I'm not sure. And I'm sure there was many times he was probably, watching us, and, we never really knew it or seen him,
Sitting over there laughing his ass off at you guys going out in the lagoon to get the roof.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we had some little hogs that come up missing.
Yeah.
We never was, it was kind of hard to always keep an accurate count, once you get your pigs moved out into the fields and all that, and you get a whole bunch of them out there, I'm pretty sure we had some come up missing, but I never could really prove that for a fact. But
well, my great-great-grandmother lived in Arkansas, and she passed away whenever I was just learning to walk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was born into 5 generations alive at once, but she spent a lot of time with my mom and her brothers and sister, pretty much helped raise them. And she had told them a story about whenever she was living in Arkansas, they had some hogs, just a small, amount for themselves. And all the animals went crazy one night, and her husband got the lantern and the shotgun and went out there, and she followed him out the door, and it was in the middle of the night, and I think it was storming or something. And they worked their way toward the hog pen, and she said that she called it a big old hairy man. They watched him reach over the fence on the pen and scoop up a full-grown hog under one arm, turn and kind of look at him, and then just turn back around and just walk off into the woods carrying this hog under one arm like it wasn't nothing.
That would be something to see.
Yeah. And I don't know what part of Arkansas she was living in at the time, but I never heard that story until I was in my 20s, and my uncle found out that I was into Bigfoot and everything, and it was actually on Thanksgiving Day, and he told me that story.
Yeah, well, that's like I say, a lot of people they're so hush hush about it. You know, it's like, you know, I guess they don't want people to think they're crazy or whatever, you know, or label them crazy. But, you know, I believe what I saw and I'm into it. And like I said, you know, me and Richard, we're trying to get our own little thing started, you know. So hopefully we'll be able to get out there and do some expeditions soon.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And, you know, with the way that area is anyway, it has one of the highest black bear populations in the state. And if a bear can survive out there, Bigfoot dang sure can.
Right.
Oh, you talking about Dry Creek?
Dry Creek, Flood, Tater Hill, all that.
Yeah, it's so, and the roads back in there are, I mean, you know, it ain't like someone can come through and just, you know, joyriding through, because the roads are rough. I mean, you know, you'd want a 4-wheel drive or whatever to even get back in there.
Now, is there a way for people to contact you if they might be somewhere in your neck of the woods and wanting to join up with you guys?
I didn't sit and think like someone might want to contact me, you know.
Well, you know, you never know. If somebody does, I'll tell you what, they can just contact me and I'll put you in touch with them.
That works for me. I mean, you got my email and all that.
Yeah,
no phone numbers.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd help.
I certainly appreciate you coming on and sharing these amazing stories. I hope our conversations do not end with this episode. I'd like to stay in touch with you guys. And do you got any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
Well, let's see. I mean, I tell everybody to keep, you know, open mind, and there are things out there that you may not understand, but you better believe it, they are out there.
Yeah, and just stay safe while you're out there. You know, you never know. You might run into one of these things on a bad day. You don't want to do that. I imagine they're a lot like us. They can have their good days and bad days, and just always be cautious and pay attention to your environment.
And beware the Bigfoot curse.
Yes, sir.
Until next time, see you then. Be sure to subscribe, follow, like, and leave a comment if you enjoyed the show. And as always, thanks for listening.